everybody, this is the Scary Movie Project, that podcast where we talk about scary movies. I'm Tara.
And by default, that makes me Matt. And,
Probably.
well, yeah, it could be. You never know. Well, you may not believe in ghosts, but you cannot deny terror. In
Ooh.
the 1963 film The Haunting, Hill House has stood for about 90 years and appears haunted. Its inhabitants have always met strange, tragic events. Now, Dr. John Markoway has assembled a team of people who he thinks will prove whether or not the house is haunted. And we made a note here. This is the 1963 original
Mm-hmm.
version of The Haunting, not the 1999 version, which you should avoid at all costs. So,
Except
anywho,
I
well,
do like Lily Taylor.
all right, fair enough, fair enough. I'm giving you my anyway. That's the deal. So yeah, 1963, the adaptation of Shirley Jackson's excellent novel, The Haunting of Hill House.
And this
So
one is much closer to the book
yes,
than the 90s one.
yes,
It's very much sticks a lot closer to it.
I would agree with this.
Also, check this out. The director, Robert Wise, this was just a weird like side note that I found out when I was looking it up. He co-directed West Side Story with Jerome Robbins. So
Okay, interesting.
he's some varied works here.
I see.
Um I just thought that was kind of interesting. Little
Okay,
tidbit there.
here's your movie cast tidbit for you.
Okay.
All right, which you may or may not know. So Russ Tamblyn, that plays what's his character's name in this film? I don't remember the character's name. But
Oh, Dr. Markway.
no.
No.
The
Luke?
is that it, Luke? Okay. Yep.
Luke.
Russ Tamblyn is Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks.
Oh my God, I did not catch
For those of you
that.
that love to watch, like me, that love Twin Peaks, the television program. Yep.
Oh my God, I love Twin Peaks and I
Oh
totally
yeah.
didn't
And
catch that.
I'm pretty sure he made a appearance in Twin Peaks: The Return that came out a couple years ago. He's got to be almost 90 years old, I would think. At this
Oh, and I
point.
haven't watched the new one yet. I need to go back
You
and do
should
that. I need to
if you
get
like
to
it.
it.
Yeah, but yeah, he's that is Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks. Anyway, that's my little
That's so
spiel.
cool.
Yeah, pretty good.
So let's get right into it. This it opens up with this opening voiceover over the very dark and foreboding visual of the
So
house.
you know what? I love any TV show, move some sort of anything that has that. That's like to me, like super gothic, awesome. Like that was how these '60s movies were done. I love that. Oh, I love
And
that.
this movie is so gothic horror.
Oozing with
Like,
gothic, you might
just
say.
oozing with it. Like a bloody, wet, grody wound.
Basically, it's good. I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
that opening voiceover is spooky.
It is. It's really good.
And then the other thing I noticed, they had that little opening voiceover, and then like all the credits were up front. Did you notice that? Like it was like a ton
So
of credits in the very
that
beginning.
is a very old-fashioned way of doing credits. That is
That's
how
way older, yeah.
I just did I did a 43 VHS transfer months ago, and they were all John Wayne movies. And I noticed that the credits back then, 60s and before, your credits always came at the beginning of the film. Yep.
Yeah, almost like
Yeah.
I don't know, it was almost like reading the playbill before the play or something.
That's
It's
where it
like
came
really,
from. Yeah, that's
yeah,
where
it's
it came
all
from.
right there.
That's right. Yep.
So after a pretty long credit sequence, we go into the history of Hill House, right?
It's an evil
Hill House.
house.
It's an evil house. So like I can't remember the name of the Crane. They
Yes.
the Mr. Crane builds it. His first wife dies in a carriage accident, like right before she sets eyes on the house. The second wife falls down the stairs. The daughter like lives in her same like little nursery room until she dies, but she's got like a companion when she's really old.
Yeah.
Who either the companion has let her die in old age while she was like canoodling with a boy downstairs, or possibly she actually kills her.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then the companion inherits the house, and then she hangs herself in the library tower. So there's a lot of like death and
It's bad
badness
news
going on here.
It's
It's
I mean,
it's bad
basically,
news.
to put it as easily as possible, you don't want to live there.
You know,
That's
it
as
made
simple as
me
I can
think.
put it.
It made me think the way they talk about the house like as evil makes me think of
Or
The
maybe you
Shining.
do want to live there. Yeah.
Just
Yes.
not like the whole thing, just in the like the
Okay.
house itself having its own like
I would think
evil
Amityville more,
miasma.
but
Amityville too, yeah,
yeah,
like
I
this
can see that.
evil miasma in the
Sure,
house.
sure.
So, and I noticed the flashbacks. I thought they really did stylistically did this very cool, like stark gothic-y lighting,
Oh, I love
which I
it.
really
No, I
liked.
love stuff like that. We should maybe if you want to review every time, if you want to do Black Sunday. I don't know if you ever seen Black Sunday.
Love Black Sunday. Yeah, we
Yeah,
should do Black
old
Sunday.
60s movie, outstanding, crazy
We should
gothic.
definitely
Yeah,
do Black Sunday. And
it's
yeah,
it's just
that's
like that.
super gothic
Yeah.
too. The like witches. Yeah,
Oh, it's
that's
excellent.
yeah, we should do Black
Mhm.
Sunday at some
Oh
point.
yeah. A
Um
lot of places parts of this movie remind me of that. Yeah.
yeah, definitely for sure.
Mhm.
So then we cut to Dr. Markway is talking to the woman who now owns the house. She, I believe, is a relative of the companion, a descendant of the companion.
Mhm.
And he's talking to her about, getting in there with some assistance to study the house and, prove basically the haunting.
Right.
And so one of the people who's going to go with him is this young woman named Eleanor. Eleanor is kind of a little bit of a like old maid. Like she's
Eleanor
not that
G, I think you're
old.
Swellenor, right?
Sorry.
No, just a stupid line from some Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
Eleanor G, I think you're Swellenor. Sorry.
Eleanor G, I think you're swelling her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
she's an
yeah,
interesting cat.
she's kind of mousy.
Yeah.
But she's taking care of her ailing mother for her whole life.
Yep.
Kind of like the companion had taken
Mm.
care of the daughter of the original family.
Coincidence?
Maybe not. But so Eleanor is going to go, and she's so excited to get away from her sister and her sister's husband, whose couch she sleeps on.
Oh, and I love the time period because it's the dad sitting around smoking his cigarette in the house with everybody.
It's
Oh,
so like late 60s,
oh,
late 50s, early 60s. Like,
father knows best.
and Eleanor's sister is such a jerk.
Oh yeah, she's the
Like,
worst.
oh my God. Okay,
But he's just sitting
so
there with the ash. I mean, it's just it could not be more like nuclear family, 1958.
oh yeah,
McCarthy. Oh my God, it's
yeah.
great. I
And
love it.
and Eleanor's the like 30-year-old old maid
Right.
who
It's
didn't
half
get
my
married.
car. I can take it if I want.
Right, yeah. So they're fighting over the car. The sister doesn't want her to take it, but she never drives it, and she says it's half hers. She paid for half of it.
Better bring
So
it back
she
in good
basically
shape.
just goes and steals the car.
Pretty much.
Or maybe half steals it since she half owns it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And she's driving to Hill House, and she's having these like internal monologues, like as she's driving, imagining like living on her own and things like that. And there's this like idyllic music, which I found actually a little bit
So,
disconcerting.
did that remind you of Psycho when she's driving away with the money?
Oh, maybe a little bit, yeah. Except this is like starting out the movie with the driving and the like.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it just jumped in my head. It's that just I don't know, kind of reminded me of it. For
Yeah,
some
no,
reason.
I can see that.
Yep.
But her internal monologue, and this is throughout the movie, it's a lot of it is like bits from the book. Like it's either directly from or paraphrased from the book.
Sure.
So we get her internal monologue sort of every once in a while throughout the whole movie.
Right.
And when Eleanor arrives, she's the first one of the like people who get
Yelling
there.
at the guy at the gate. I'm expected. Get out of
The
my
caretaker,
way. Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, she yells at the caretaker because he's all crabby. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. She yells at the caretaker because he's crabby, and he doesn't want her to come in, and he tells her that she's going to regret coming here, which is like every beginning of every horror movie, right? There's somebody who's like, don't go in there. You're going to regret it.
You're gonna die. All right.
And when she gets in the house, she meets his wife, who's the housekeeper.
I don't stay past dark. I leave it dark.
Yeah, I know. I don't stay past dark. Breakfast is out at 9. I clear at 10.
And
I clear at 10.
And I don't stay
clear
past dark.
At 10.
She lets you know what time anything's happening, and she does not stay past dark.
Yeah, she's rather funny. and she does the whole thing about like, and no one will hear you if you call for us. We'll all be in town.
Right.
We won't hear you. No one will hear you
That's
if
like
you call for help.
that's like the tag from Alien in space. No one can hear you scream or something,
Yes,
right?
in Hill House,
No,
no one can hear you
right.
scream. Much like space,
Yes.
no one can hear you scream in Hill House either. So then Eleanor is like outside the house, or just, I think it's right before she goes in or as she comes in, she's having these like premonitions about the house that like it's gonna like devour her, and it's after her, and it's this dark place that she shouldn't go into, which like if they hadn't already set up like this is a haunted house, you might just think like, okay, she's
Crazy.
she's a crazy anxious lady and this is
Right.
just her nerves. But they did set it up in the very beginning with the doctor that the house is potentially haunted.
Mm-hmm.
So the next arrival is Theodora. Theo, as she says to
That's
call
right.
her. She's super
Oh
glamorous.
yeah.
And like she's so 60s cool.
She is.
Like, and I noticed the actress, like, they specifically credited the woman who did her wardrobe
Oh yeah.
because it's like super cool. It
Okay.
was like super cool, fashion forward. Of course, like literally all she ever wears is black pants and shirts,
Right.
but
It works.
at that time that was like very, very hip and cool.
Sure. Okay. Good enough.
And then Nell and Theo they get taken to their rooms, they put their stuff down, they wander through the house, and they're like looking for the dining room and everyone else. And Nell hears like a voice in the house, but Theo doesn't hear it. But then they're talking, and Theo says, "It wants you, Nell. The house wants you." And Theo, the reason she's here, we find out, is because Dr. Markway has found her to be somewhat psychic.
Yep.
So it's interesting. Right in the beginning, she's saying the house wants you, like, and she almost like offhand says it.
Right.
And finally, they find Dr. Markaway, and he shows them the purple parlor where they're going to have their like base of operations, basically.
Right.
And this is when he tells them, and this is in the book too, the whole house was built weirdly with like no right angles.
Yeah.
And the doors were hung off center, so they shut themselves when you try to leave them open.
Right.
And so because there's no right angles, you can't ever tell where you are.
But then he says that he's in that one scene. He's like, okay, now we've gotten to here. Where's the kitchen? And they're like, oh, it's this way. Wrong. I made a map. I know where everything is. And he takes the wrong turn.
Opens the door and it's the like broom closet.
Right. Are you a witch?
So they finally get to the dining room and they meet Luke, who is the owner's nephew, who the owner insisted go with them.
And that's Russ Tamblyn, right?
Yes. And he's sort of a roue and a cad.
Yeah, I mean, he's 20-something years old at the time of the movie, probably.
Yeah,
right? So.
yeah. And so during dinner, Dr. Markaway tells them he wants them all to record their experiences in the house. And this is when he tells them, like, Theo has ESP. Eleanor is there because she had a poltergeist in her house when she was 10 years old, which she says, no, that was just neighbors throwing rocks. It wasn't really a poltergeist, my mother said. She's very defensive about it.
Yes.
And then after dinner, he gives them all their little forms to fill out, and they all go off to bed. And Nell and Theo, Eleanor, Nell, and Theo are next door to each other with a little adjoining like bathroom. So that's important to know because they like go into each other's rooms through it. So Theo, by the way, is definitely psychic because she keeps telling Nell what she's thinking. Like she tells her that she wasn't sad when her mother died, which she wasn't. She tells her that she wants to change her hair, which she's been thinking about. And like, so she just she's definitely psychic. So then in the middle of the night, Nell wakes up with this like huge banging sound, which I like the way they do this.
That was just like, it is just loud and just intense. Like, what the hell is that? Right.
Yes. And this whole movie, like, it's not a terribly like scary movie. Like there aren't really a lot of jump scares and things like that. And it's not, you're not in terror the whole time. It's more just kind of like creepy.
Well, but it's along the lines of what you don't see should be what scares you, not obvious things they put on screen for you, right?
Yes, and that's what I think is so good about it. They do so much with like almost no on-screen effects or anything.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty
We'll talk
much.
about the one big one that we get towards the end, but there's almost nothing, and they do it so well. And so Theo yells for her. They both hear this banging, and it's going up and down the hall. Now they're in the room together, like huddling, and it gets to their door, and they have these amazing, this really awesome shot of the door where it like goes. It goes like from one side of the door frame, it goes up the door and across the top and around.
Right.
And you can hear the knocks following that pattern as the camera goes in that same pattern. I thought it was really well done.
They did a lot of cool stuff like that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they did a lot of neat shots. They just made a lot with a little.
Yes, they did.
I
think they used the lens that wasn't even like really signed off by the manufacturer, and they went ahead and tried it out.
Really?
I think I heard something. I don't know if that's true, but
whatever. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So finally there's like the just laughter, and it all fades away, and the men show up, Dr. Markway and Luke, and it turns out they had been chasing what they think is maybe a dog that they saw inside, and they chased it outside. So we don't know we never find out what that is.
No.
Like they saw something and they thought it was a dog, and they chase it around. And I think Dr. Markway says, it's trying to separate us. Like, I can't remember if it's at this point or at a separate point when they get separated again that he says it's trying to separate us. So, they have breakfast the next morning, and Luke comes in a little late, and he shows them writing that he found on the wall in the hallway outside. And it says, huge across the whole hallway. It says, "Help Eleanor come home." And Nell freaks the ever living hell out.
Right.
She accuses Theo of doing it. Theo accuses her of doing it. Like, everybody's like losing their minds over it. But mostly Nell is just really losing her mind. They calm her down, and they go on a tour of the house. And one of the places they see in the house is the library, which Eleanor can't go in. She says it smells awful. She's like, I can't do it. And she just stands outside while Dr. Markway shows them. It's got this tower with this like winding metal, like wrought iron spiral staircase. Yeah. So which is where the companion from the old story hung herself.
So that part, to me, I think is so cool. One of my favorite scenes is just the way they shot that. With it's very disconcerting to look at, because they hang that camera over the edge, and you really are like, whoa, stop doing that. You're making me uncomfortable. That's a fear of heights thing. They did a really good job with the camera angle on that to make you feel like you're there. And
so they actually designed the banister of the stairway to be wide enough and thick enough that they could fit a small rig with wheels on it.
Very good.
And so they had this little like dolly that would hold the camera, and like they would take it. So they did the one where it goes like down, or it goes up the stairs in the spiral. And they started at the top and had like a control wire, and they let it run down while it was rolling, and then they reversed the film.
Huh. Very cool.
So they actually had the camera on the balustrade for that.
I like that. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, see that's
I thought that was really pretty cool. Neat.
Yeah, that was the part I liked. Yeah, I thought was really neat. That was a very not like Vertigo kind of scene, but yeah, it's unsettling if you don't like the height. They did a good job of kind of scaring you that way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not quite Hitchcock's Vertigo, but it's definitely a little unsettling.
It is.
And especially because they discover at this point that the stairs are like falling down. They're pulling away from the wall and starting to fall.
Right.
So after this, Dr. Markway's all worried about Nell's like nervousness, and he tells her, even if one event is proven to be a hallucination, it will ruin the experiment. So he like doesn't want her to be crazy, basically.
Please don't be crazy.
He's worried that she's crazy and she's going to screw up their experiment.
Yeah.
And that night, Nell and Theo get drunk together. Yes. And this is when Nell tells Theo she doesn't ever want to leave Hill House.
And you're like,
so she's already like in. Yeah, she's already in. She wants to stay here forever.
Yep.
Like, she's done. She doesn't ever want to go back home. She already didn't want to go back home.
No. Well,
Now she doesn't want to leave Hill House specifically. And Dr. Markway calls him out to examine a cold spot that he found in the hallway outside the nursery,
pretty cool.
which is where the daughter, Abigail Crane, that's her name, where she grew up and died.
Okay.
And Luke is, all thinks, oh, it's a breeze coming in or something. He doesn't believe any. Yeah. Luke believes none of this. He's just there because his aunt wanted him to be there with the house.
Right.
So
very skeptical.
So for this night, now Nell hears singing and laughing outside the bedroom, and then a kid crying.
Yeah, right.
And this is one of the creepiest parts, I think. Theo's staying with her, and they've got these two beds that are like right next to each other, and Nell it's pitch dark, and she's hearing all these sounds, and she's she calls out to Theo, and she wants to hold her hand.
Right.
And so she's holding Theo's hand. She's gripping her hand, and she's, oh, you're gripping me so hard. And when she finally, like, it gets like too much and she yells and turns on the light, Theo's completely on the other side of the room from her. And she's like, whose hand was I holding?
Right. Yeah, that was good.
That is creepy. Like, and again, like, no special effects, but the idea of whose hand was she holding is so creepy.
Makes you think, yeah, exactly. It's again, it's that stuff you don't see that scares you.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying, this is definitely not a scary movie. No. This is a spooky, creepy movie.
Yeah, sure.
So now we're getting like all this, like Dr. Markway is talking about all this supernatural stuff, and Nell is like hanging on his every word. She clearly has a huge crush on him. Like, it's getting more and more obvious that she has a huge crush on Dr. Markway.
Absolutely.
Which is funny. In the book, she has a crush on Luke.
Oh, okay.
But in this, they've transferred it to Dr. Markway.
Makes sense.
Which, interestingly, makes it even less appropriate, right? Because Dr. Markway is married.
But it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. So but it does. It totally makes sense, because he's the man who knows what's going on with everything, and he's very suave, and he's very cool, and he's very kind to her.
Yeah.
So the next evening, that's when Luke finds this weird book of precepts that Mr. Crane made for his daughter.
Right.
Where he's got all these like biblical passages and all these weird ass like creepy pictures, and that's even more made even more like of a thing in the book.
Okay.
Of The Haunting of Hill House. It's like, it's weird. It's just weird and like psychosexual and creepy.
The one thing that I will say is, just real quick, is, I mean, on that topic.
Yeah.
I know that is on the list of books to read, and I'm going to try to do it soon, because sadly, Shirley Jackson's work is amazing. She's incredible. I think we've mentioned that before. She's an incredible author. But yeah, I am, hopefully that book will be read shortly, sooner rather than later.
Definitely. I listened to it last week in preparation for this, and it is very,
it's excellent from what I understand.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very dark. It's I mean, the gothic is like dialed up to 11.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic.
When she wrote that in the 50s? Is that right?
Late 50s, I believe. Yeah. So I think it was only a few years before the movie came out.
That makes sense. Okay.
That the book came out. So then Dr. Markway's wife shows up. Grace.
Yes, that's right.
And
you had almost
forgotten
forgotten he was married for some reason. To me, it slipped away from me, and then she showed up, and I'm like, "Who is this?" I'm his wife. Oh, right, his wife. Yeah.
It's only mentioned like very early in the beginning, and then it's kind of like let to go, and that's when you're like, "Oh, she totally has a crush on this guy, and he's married.
Right.
Like, this isn't gonna work." So she shows up. She totally doesn't believe in any of this nonsense. She announces that she's staying, and she wants to stay in the nursery.
Because someone met. Ooh, well, that's where I'll stay.
Because it's the most haunted. Right. She's like, I'll stay there.
Like, no.
Because this is BS.
Right.
And I'll just stay there. And Dr. Markway tells her, well, the door is locked. We can't even get in.
Mm-hmm.
Which at the time he says it, they all believe to be true, because they've tried to get into it. When they get upstairs, the door is wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone else says, screw this, we're sleeping in the parlor. like all together. We're all going to sleep in the purple parlor.
The Paula.
And the dudes take turns like patrolling the upstairs. And so everybody's asleep and Luke is on patrol and he comes into the parlor to get a drink during his turn because he's Luke. And the door slams closed behind him and the banging noises start again. And this is when the amazing effect happens. The door like bulges inwards.
Warp. It's almost like the door in The Exorcist. Remember when that one scene when it shuts and starts to crack?
Mm-hmm. That's and it's like so it's like warping, and I know how they did that one too.
I would like to hear that because that is
I found out how to do that one.
Maybe the coolest scene of the movie.
So that one they took, they created a prop door with laminated wood instead of the like really like heavy, true wood that the doors are made out of.
I mean, you look at the house, you would think that's like 6 inches solid of wood, right? Right.
Yeah, they got this like light laminated wood and decorated it like that. And they had the bending effect was literally caused by a big, huge, strong stagehand. Pushing on the door with like, with a timber. So with like a long 2x4 or something, they were like pushing on the door to make it bulge.
And you know what? Again, that's great. Exactly. Yeah.
No, hardly any ability to do, major effects like we do nowadays. But
what do they say?
So
necessity.
Creative.
What is necessity? The mother of invention, or whatever. I mean, when you don't have.
Yep.
I mean, at that time, your brain couldn't even think of. Wish we had a computer for this because that didn't even exist. So I mean, that's the thing. And now, you can still. I mean, you can still do stuff like that. There's no reason you can't. But
but it does. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
If you watch this show, if you haven't already watched this movie and you watch it, look out for that scene. It's
great.
It's a really cool set of shots.
Very cool.
So there's another door in the parlor, like on the other side, that Nell sneaks out while everyone's distracted because she's convinced that the house wants her and she is now determined to let it have her.
Yeah.
She is going to stay with the house. So she's running through the house. She gets to the nursery. She finds Mrs. Markway gone. And everyone else runs in behind her and they all go to look for Miss Markway.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, Nell wanders around and ends up at the library. And this time she goes in and she goes up the tower stairs and they're like swaying and she has to keep stopping.
To fall off the wall.
And then like suddenly everyone else runs in and Dr. Markway is like, oh my God, get back down here. Like, what are you doing? She keeps climbing.
Yeah.
She's
like, no, don't look back.
By the house.
Right, don't look back. Yeah. Keep going. Don't listen to what they say. Right.
Yeah, she's either possessed by the house or crazy or some combination of the two.
I would go combo.
probably combo. Yeah. Probably combo platter.
I'd go combo.
So she keeps climbing up, and Dr. Markway goes after her, and they both get Safeway up to the little platform, and he finally gets her to go back down with him. But then she sees. Mrs. Markway peek out of the tower's trapdoor. Yeah, that's like the one like
that was good though.
The one jump scare in the whole movie.
But it worked. It was good.
And Nell faints, and so Dr. Markway gets her back to the ground, and he tells her she has to leave before anything else happens to her. And she's like, "No, the house wants me, but Mrs. Markway took my place, and the house isn't going to be satisfied with her. The house wants me." And she's just generally talking absolutely crazy.
She's whacked out, yeah.
So they bundle Nell into her car and they make her go. And basically she starts heading down the drive.
Well, remember, what's his face gets in.
Oh, Luke is going to get in the car with her, but then he gets back out.
What did he get out for? Yeah.
To get the key. Oh, to get the key to the gate.
There you go.
To get the key to the gate to get them out. Yes. And she just starts driving without him.
Mumbling to herself and all crazy.
Mumbling to herself, yeah. thinking to herself, having these, her little inner monologue.
Yes.
And she starts, the wheel like twists out of control and she drives into a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And you see as she's driving the tree, there's someone running behind the tree too.
Like real fast.
Yeah,
almost like one of those videos you'd see of like people who think they see a Bigfoot or something running in front of their car.
My God, it's exactly like that. And it turns
out
that
caught on camera.
It turns out that it's Mrs. Markway.
Yes, it is.
And she's been lost in the house the whole time. And
she's kind of crazy at this point.
She's just finally ended up outside the house. Like, yeah, she's freaked out because the house has basically like been leading her on this weird like
screwing with her
where she doesn't know where she is.
Right.
Yeah. Like one minute she's looking for the dining room, the next minute she's up in the attic, in the tower, then she's outside and she doesn't know how she got like
Right.
any of these
What is
places.
happening?
So basically that's the end. Like Nell has died,
And then doesn't
driven into the tree, just like the first wife
that's
drove
right.
into the tree in the
That's right.
carriage.
That's right. Doesn't Dr. Markaway make a point of saying, someone says, "Oh, well, she did such and such to crash," and he was like, "No, no, it's not because of that. It's
Oh, someone says she saw Mrs. Markaway. That's
it
Miss
distracted her,
Markaway.
but
That's why
not what it
that's
was."
why she crashed. And Miss Markaway says, "No, I saw her.
Right.
She didn't notice me until after she was already crashing."
Yep. So he's like, yeah, he
So,
basically says the house did it.
and I love in the book at this moment, like she's thinking to herself all these things and she's thinking about staying with the house and all this stuff.
Right.
And the very like last thing she thinks
Well,
is,
do you want to ruin the book for people? Hold on, I'm gonna say that.
"Oh,
I know we do spoilers, but do we want to ruin the book too? Because I haven't read it either. Don't forget.
all right, I won't ruin
You'll
it for
ruin
you."
it for me. You ruin it for
Okay.
me. I'm just saying.
I mean, it is very like the film, but
Yeah.
I think the book has much more.
Well, it's a book always has more. Of course it does.
I think it has more. I think it just has more. To me, I felt more of the focus on like being a woman and particularly an unmarried woman in that time, and sort of that feeling of like helplessness and hopelessness
Okay.
of like you're not really considered capable of running your own life.
Okay.
And yet you don't have someone to take care of you.
Right.
You don't have a man taking care of you.
Right.
So
when are you gonna
I
settle
feel
down
like
and
there
get
was
married?
a lot. I feel like there was a lot more of that I felt in the book.
Okay.
But maybe that's just because we could get more inside her head in the book than we could in the movie.
Okay. Interesting take. I like that. Probably very true. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but and another interesting thing about the take on women in the movie, I did not realize this until I was like looking stuff up about it. So Theo is a lesbian in the movie, at least, and she's attracted to Nell. I never caught on the whole movie. I did not catch that, and I think that's our modern eye. I think it's because we would expect to see more overt overtures.
Yeah, just totally on display and stereotypical behavior of it.
Yeah, and because of the rules of the time for movies,
yeah, that was not going to happen.
They weren't allowed to do that. Like apparently she wasn't ever even supposed to touch Nell, like physically touch her, but she even did a couple times in the movie, and so they were like flirting with being censured.
How much do you have to point that out? I mean, does it have to? I mean, does it really? I mean, if it changes the arc of the story that she's a lesbian, fine. But otherwise, I mean, who cares, right?
I don't think it changes the arc. I think the only thing it does is it adds a little bit more to that feeling of these are two women who are not doing what is expected of them.
Yep.
In society.
That part I like. Yeah, the whole thing about, and if she's a lesbian, great. Who cares? I mean, it has no meaning besides unless it changes the story. We don't need.
I think that's really
stupid,
all it is.
Right, we don't need some salacious portrayal to show. Oh, look, this is a lesbian. Wow, great. Who cares?
Yeah. It doesn't need to be like a. Right. Certainly doesn't need to be a thing, but I think it adds an interesting texture to it. If you know that.
Okay, well, I definitely don't think I knew that. That's interesting.
But yeah, I definitely didn't realize it. So if you haven't watched it yet and are going to, or if you have and you're going to watch it again, there you go. Think about that and see if that changes sort of how the movie feels to you. Okay. And let us know if it does, because I'd be curious to hear what people think of that.
That's a good look. Yeah.
And yeah, you were mentioning the other lens. I think I did find that most of the film was shot through lenses that added a curvature to the wall. So sort of fisheye lenses.
Bowing it out in a little bit. And,
to make the house seem even stranger.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I liked about it was technique-wise. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't care a lot for the film. I mean, I don't love it. I don't like it all that much. I think it's fine. And I think it's an important movie because it's a classic movie and it's based on a great story. And it is. And for someone.
And you can see, I feel like you can see the beginnings of a lot of other haunted house movies in it.
That's the thing. It was really one of the big ones. They really start. It's an important movie. So that's fine. Mm-hmm. I don't. If it was on TV, I wouldn't flip the channel. I wouldn't ignore it. I would watch it. That's fine. But yeah, technique wise, it's really good. Yeah. Like I said, the staircase shots and. they never actually like darkened anything. It was always kind of light, so it never really gave you a scary feeling. It put you in a place where you weren't,
Yep.
you know, a scary movie. You're expecting shadows and dark and nighttime, and they don't really do that. So it kind of throws you off, and it kind of gets
No,
you in a
yeah, there's
yeah,
I mean, quite a bit of it takes place during the day, and
exactly.
then, like, even the night stuff, it's not like they're not doing all this, like, obscuring
Mm-hmm.
shots where you can't see
Right.
anything and you don't know what's around the corner,
That's right.
um, which
I
I think is interesting because they're it's this guy who's looking at haunted houses through a scientific lens,
mm-hmm.
so
Well, if he
that
knows what
makes
he's doing.
sense. Yeah, well, yeah, as much as we as far as we know, he's trying to look at it through a scientific lens,
Right.
so if we're doing a more stark scientific view of everything, visually, I think
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
One thing that was cool too, I like those scenes where every time Nell seems to look up at the house or some, it's always that perspective where the house is so much bigger than her, and
Hmm.
she's almost pushed back, or we're looking down at her, like it's that
Yeah.
fight back and forth perspective. So yeah, not a lot of effects, and there's no, you don't ever see a ghost, you don't see things. But yeah, technically wise, I think it was really well done. And I mean,
Yeah.
a
I
lot
think
of
I
people think
agree.
that it did scare them. Yeah.
I enjoy it, but I didn't like love it like some horror movies. I
Hmm.
was like, yeah, this was cool. Like this was good. I
Yeah.
think having read the book added some to it for me.
Sure.
Um
And I might
so I
appreciate it
definitely
more when
enjoyed
I
it,
read
but
it.
I
Yeah, yeah.
don't think it wasn't like my favorite thing we've seen.
No. Now, what I
Um
will say, I'll mention this is my guilty personal favorite part, which I loved. Now, of course, as you know, White Zombie is the greatest band ever of all time, right?
um
Well.
we'll take that as being true in this case.
Okay,
Okay.
it will beat Joe. Well, it's true for me, and we'll leave it at that. So there's a song called "Supercharger Heaven" that's on their Astro Creep 2000 CD, which is outstanding. And it, so Rob Zombie's always great about doing samples. He always has it
Mhm.
because he loves scary movies just as much as we do, right? And he always in his songs uses these samples from scary movies, just quick little lines from stuff. And he used Charles Manson and stuff like that. There's this one that I've heard for years on that song. It starts that song off, and I've just been like, I've never known. I've repeated it in my head. I don't know where it comes. I just know it's from a scary movie. I never Googled it. I didn't bother with it. So I'm watching this movie which, for the first time, and I hear this guy's voice, the doctor, and I'm thinking, this is so familiar. Oh my God, where is this from? And then I hear him drop the line that starts off that White Zombie song, "Supercharger Heaven." I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen. And I went,
Mhm.
oh, White Zombie, that's the line right there. So for that reason, I will hold on to that movie as a special place in my heart because I love that song from White Zombie, and I finally figured that most of his songs I know where the lines are from, but I had no idea where this is from. So very cool. That's my personal stamp on it right there.
So on that note, shall we sign off?
Yeah, I guess
So before we
I rambled on
go,
that for a bit. Yeah.
we'd like to make sure that you guys, if you enjoyed the podcast, that you would please rate us and review us on iTunes or wherever the heck you're listening, so that more people can find us. Oh, wait, Matt has one more thing to
Sorry,
say.
sorry, sorry, sorry. I just wanted to mention. So watch the 1999 remake of The Haunting at your own risk, please, because I am not
Oh,
endorsing it.
yeah, at your own risk.
But now maybe you have. I have not, and I will at some point. People went nuts over that Netflix miniseries, The Haunting, right? Recently,
Yes,
they
the
said it
miniseries
was
is good.
amazing.
It's
Okay,
it's a very different story though. It's very cool though.
okay. But people, everyone I
Um,
talked to was like, "Oh my god, it's amazing! It's scary! It's great! It's wonderful!"
yeah, it's I thought it was really cool. I've
Okay, I haven't
seen
seen it.
the
Yeah.
first season. I
Oh,
don't
it's
think I've
mold.
seen the
I
second
know
season.
it's a couple seasons. Okay.
I think there's a
I'll have to get
second
around to it.
season.
Yeah, no,
Um,
outstanding reviews. But yeah, the other one, the 1990, take that with a, I don't know.
yeah, no, watch the 1963 movie or read the book or both,
Both.
and maybe watch the TV show because it's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So okay,
Sorry.
so
Please
rate and
continue.
review if you would. We would love that. It really helps because people can find us better if we get more ratings. And don't forget, send us your movie suggestions and your thoughts on the movies we've watched so far. Like, hey, what do you think? Is Theo a lesbian? And does it matter to the movie? Curious to know what you all think about that. So send us those at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com. And we will see you all next time. Out.
Bye bye.